Hello again, I am Blunty, and thank you to SteelSeries, without whom I could not have travelled to PAX Australia this year to experience many fantastic and fun things. They are awesome people with awesome products, and whoever the design team is, well, dude, look at this sleek ass headset. I dare you to tell me there's a better looking headset out there. But back to the show floor. VR. It's awesome fun, but not exactly super enticing when it comes to getting it set up at home. And no doubt you're already aware of the HTC Vive or Oculus Rift by now. For the last year or so, they've been pushing pretty hard against each other for general awareness and battling it out for sales. And while the other main option, if you will, the PlayStation VR, is cheap and relatively easy to set up, their reliance on comparatively ancient webcam and dildo ball tracking leaves the experience fairly compromised by poor tracking fidelity, judder, and forget about facing anyway but directly forward at all times, because that doesn't work. But the issue with the far superior PC-based VR products is mainly the price and the complexity and scale of the setup. Lots of cables, external tracking devices you have to mount on your walls or put up on a bookshelf somewhere on the opposite sides of the room, especially HTC Vive. What a pain in the ass that is to set up. It's a terrific experience, but complete pain in the ass to set up. The Rift is a little bit better, using a camera for its tracking, at least in its default setup, sitting only, front-facing only mode, without room scale. But it is just as annoying in the room scale setup where you need two cameras, so that's an extra couple of cables, and Enter Microsoft to save the day. Believe it or not, weird words to say in combination, right? Can you imagine Microsoft saving the day? Well, they kind of have, with their new, what they're branding, Windows Mixed Reality headsets. It may be the thing VR finally needs to get some real customer traction and get these things in a lot more people's homes. The main benefit is the use of what's called inside-out tracking. The headset itself uses cameras to track the controller position to deliver precise movement fidelity with no need to mount external satellite devices on your walls or bookshelves or whatever, which also means far less cables running around your room. Everything is self-contained in the headset itself. They've got Spatial Audio 3, which I didn't get to try at the PAX Australia show floor as none of the 3 units I tried had headphones hooked up, grr. But it's clever technology that properly places the audio around you so it sounds like the real world does around you, enhancing the feeling of immersion while you're in your VR world. And finally, the motion controllers, which I have to tell you, feel far cheaper than the Vives, for example. The plastic is just not as nice. The instant you put your hands on them, you can tell they're made cheaply. But they did work very well, and they were very light and comfortable in hand. In fact, I think they're more comfortable than the Vives. They balanced better. I don't think the buttons or the thumbstick and pad are as nice as the Vive controllers either, but they did the job just fine. Hopefully third parties will soon offer their own versions or some kind of upgraded unit with better build quality or feel. And the entire technology around these headsets is something that Microsoft are letting different brands license. So far, there's 5 different options, 4 of which are already hitting the shelves right as I speak, and 3 of which I actually got to try for myself for the first time ever this weekend at the PAX Australia Expo. They're all similar in base functionality, but there's slight differences in form factor and comfort. And rather importantly, they're all much more affordable than the Vive or Rift. They all use 2 displays, 1440 by 1440, for a very clean and crisp image, free of the screen door effect, which affects the existing VR headsets to various degrees, where their lower resolution displays makes their pixels more obvious. And all these devices have hinged displays that flip up out of the way when you need to quickly look at the real world around you to, get a drink or talk to someone or untangle your cable or something, without the hassle of having to take off the entire headset. Which is yet another one of those pain-in-the-ass usability things that I found with the HTC Vive. In fact, they also go on your head much quicker too, with their single band, a little knob at the back to tighten them up. The field of view is slightly less than the Vive, which has 110 degrees. These are up to 105 degrees, but actually didn't feel like it was an issue. I didn't really notice it that much. I mean, I'd like a wider field of view, but it works just fine. And all the headsets have a headphone jack on the headset itself, so you can use whatever headphones you like. They connect over a single slim cable, which has a HDMI for the video feed and USB 3.0 for the data, with a 4-meter cable, which I feel like should be enough for most people. But I have to tell you, I did get a bit of a tangle going at the Asus booth while playing Superhot, which is a game that needs you to turn around a fair bit. And as for the specific devices that I tried myself, I felt like the Lenovo had the best experience. It was very comfortable. It felt very, very light. I liked the way they did the padding against the face. It tracked flawlessly and had a subtle design that I really appreciated. The tightening mechanism on the band did squeak a bit while fitting it, that nasty plastic squeaking, which didn't speak much to the build quality of that particular component, but it's hardly a deal breaker. In with a very close second, and in fact I kind of flip-flop between this and the Lenovo, is the Dell. It too was very, very comfortable. It tracked without flaw and provided a great experience. Clean, bright, vivid, except the computers that Dell were using to run the thing were, well, let's put it this way, they were definitely underpowered. I don't know who made the decision or what hardware was actually running these things, but my time in Space Pirate Simulator was marred fairly heavily by juddering and heavy frame drops. It's not the fault of the headset, that's someone at Dell half-assing the demo rig on the show floor or just not setting it up right. You'd think Dell would know better, but shrug. I also really like the white sci-fi droid-like design of Dell's headset. It's almost cute, isn't it? And finally, there was the Acer version, which I do not recommend based on my experience at the show. It was not as comfortable, the visor didn't sort of lock into place properly, sort of flopped about a little bit, it sat a little bit sloppily, and the tracking, which remember is the same controllers and the same inside-out tech for all of these, just didn't work as well. Maybe it was Acer's implementation, maybe it was their setup on the show floor, but all I can tell you is that my experience was so bad with their headset I had to rage quit my game of Superhot when the game just refused to acknowledge what I was trying to do a lot of the time. I was flailing by the end of it, getting very frustrated. Also, and maybe this is an issue for most of you, but I certainly think Asus is easily the ugliest. It looks like something an ex-Fisher-Price designer came up with, doesn't it? Dell's clean white lines or Lenovo's classic simplicity are much more pleasant. What I was impressed with in general, though, was how good the experience was, especially with the controller tracking, which only works in full fidelity when the headset's cameras can actually see the controllers, of course. And with many games designed for the HTC Vive in particular in mind, they sometimes use reaching behind you, for example, to pull out an arrow or bow or bring out a shield or something as an in-game mechanic. And I thought this could certainly be a problem with these headsets who can't track the controllers when they're behind you. But there are motion sensors in the controllers that give you a broader motion tracking when they're out of line of sight with the visor. It doesn't have the same fidelity, of course, but it did seem to work quite well, tracking my shield properly in Space Pirate Simulator when I held it off to my side out of view, or while firing dual-wielded pistols in opposite directions in Superhot. The tracking didn't seem to hitch or judder as the controller transitioned in and out of the line of sight of the visor, and the tracking felt smooth, accurate, and responsive. I have to admit, I was skeptical but hopeful about these headsets when they were first announced, and I've been waiting rather eagerly to see if I can avoid the big price tag of a HTC Vive by getting one of these instead. And now they're here, and now that I've had my head inside them, I think I can and will seek one out instead of the HTC Vive. They're cheaper, they're easier, they're lighter, they're more comfortable, their design is better and more convenient, they're simple to set up and need much less fussing and fiddling around than the Vive or Rift. And of course, with active competition between different brands using essentially identical setups, the prices should stay pretty competitive too. Unless of course there's some kind of price-fixing collusion going on behind closed doors, who knows. But yeah, I'm going to try and get one, and if I can get one soon enough, I'll plop down a proper review for you guys. But until then, I'd say definitely seek out a demo at least of one of these at a show or a store or something. I was pleasantly surprised by them, and you may be too. Thanks for watching, I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time.